Welcome back to the program, folks. This is John, one of the hosts of Framework, and with me, as always, the other host of Framework, Al. How are you today, Al?
I am. It's okay. It's bittersweet to come to the end of the Carpenter run. Spoiler alert: not on his strongest feature that we are ending.
You don't think? Oh, okay, no. Interesting. Yeah. So we're talking about the final technically theatrically released John Carpenter film, The Ward. This is his, I guess, probably going to be his last movie. I mean, he could always come back and surprise us, but as it stands now, no. 2010's The Ward is the final film of horror master John Carpenter. With us to discuss this final film of the filmography, you were with us for Terminator 2 Judgment Day. You're with us for The Dark Knight. So it seems obvious.
You had dues to pay.
Yeah.
The bill was going to come due one day.
The link in those films is so clear to me. I'm not sure why nobody else might see it. So,
Michael, how are you?
Good. I'm very good. Glad to be here.
Welcome back. And thanks again for watching this movie.
Oh, my God. Yeah, you guys... If you hadn't put that carrot out about what comes after that, I'm not sure I would have done it. So,
okay. Is that how you ended up on this one? I was trying to remember because I had you down a long time ago for this, and I can't remember why. It was just because you wanted to pick the next one for us. Yeah.
I asked him to. I knew no one wanted The Ward. I was like, well, let's get someone we can trust.
No, John did that. I put a bid in for a couple other Carpenter films, but I think those are nabbed before I could even get my voice in. So.
No. Yeah, it's just been a while since we talked to you, is what it really was. It was like somebody with a steady hand for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's after you get Terminator 2, like you don't get first draft pick the following season, you know? So anyway, this is the Ward. It's about a haunted psychological hospital in the 1960s. And man, I was trying to stay kind of optimistic about this one. And then I got one scene into this. The opening, like cold open, was actually like it was a decent kill. And I was kind of like, okay, maybe this is not so bad. And then we get into the introduction of the actual heroine, and it just, I don't know why it never occurred to me before, but all of a sudden I was like, oh, God damn it. Is there any way this is not a multiple personality bullshit thing? And of course there's not. It's a multiple personality bullshit thing. It's who could possibly care? I don't know why people want to do this as a concept like this.
Yeah,
I was surprised. I thought this movie was going to be terrible, like construction top to bottom. It's actually shot perfectly well. I think I was surprised. It's a better made movie than I thought it was. I just hate it for what it is.
I'm terrible at guessing stuff, so I did not see the quote unquote twist coming. Therefore, when it happened, I was even angrier because it's such a shitty thing. I mean, by 2010, they're all the same person. Oh my God, that's like it's right up there with. And then they woke up.
Right. Multiple personalities and imaginary friend movies are my least favorite thing ever. You know, obligatory exemption for Fight Club. But
what if it was a Fight Club legacy sequel, though?
How are you selling? Is he's having like a midlife crisis now, or is it?
Tyler's back. We need Tyler to fight a different avatar in his head or something like that. You know,
it's not Tyler and Marla's son is like becoming red pilled.
That's probably happening too. You know, yeah.
But that's already addressed in the first one. I don't, like of course, we want to talk about anything but the Ward here because there's nothing interesting about this twist in this one.
I knew going in, and I think it did kind of ruin the movie for me. I imagine I would have figured it out, as every scene has some kind of hint that things aren't real, that reality is not reliable. Just sort of various oddities and obvious questions left unanswered, and. Just how
the hospital was not responding to the patients being murdered,
or disappearing
like, slowly.
Yeah, there's that. But yeah, I mean, I say I had it spoiled. I think it would have been better to come into this movie not knowing the twist, but it wouldn't have saved this thing.
It made it worse, John.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it made it worse. I was just like bored up until that point, and then I became actively angry because that's that was 88 minutes of my life I'm not getting back because of that bullshit.
The first hour of this movie is just staggeringly dull.
It's extremely dull.
That's not been a problem for John Carpenter, and this movie is,
except for Village of the Damned. It was
that movie is way more interesting than this, though. There's at least children murdering people in it. This has nothing.
I mean, you're right. But that was my only take on that movie when we did that one, was how is this movie about evil children psychically murdering people to this dull?
Look, I'm not here to defend Village of the Damned. It is the number 17 film on top of number 18 in our Carpenter rankings for me. We'll soon get to that, but this movie, I mean, there's nothing interesting going on in the ward, I'm afraid. No. 1960s haunted asylum. Have you ever seen a more boring version of that? Like this is the design they came up with. I mean, it feels like they just had no money for design. They just found a place that would allow them to shoot there, and so I guess it's the whole movie's here. Like
it's even less design for me. It's the way it's shot. I mean, it's like another guest you've had on, Daniel Baldwin. He and I were kind of talking about this earlier, and I'm going to steal his phrase: is that the film feels authorless. Like you would never think that this is a Carpenter film. I mean, it is on a technical level. It is competent. That's the most I can tell you. It's like it's competent at a base level, technical level.
Well,
but
it's sort of.
I'm just saying that things are
coming off Ghost to Mars. Yeah, it's shot much better. It's
shot. Composition is good, I guess.
Things are in focus.
The things being captured are not good.
But I mean, the editing itself is there's some really weird, choppy edits. Like I think that you can't even chalk up to the whole personality thing. As far as interesting things, the only thing that interesting to me is like Jared Harris slumming it in that, and then
really slumming it. And I've seen him in bad movies, and he usually has more to show for it.
Amber Heard just rampantly
he's just lifeless here.
Yeah. Amber Heard's smell the fart acting throughout is just. I mean, she's just it's furrowed brow the movie for her. It's I don't know.
This is, I think, the first thing I've seen her as the lead, the proper protagonist lead in, and I don't think she's well suited to that.
No,
I don't know. I think she's fine, but it's also like, you need a really great actor to do anything with this character who's by design, a shade of a person,
right?
That doesn't really have an interiority or anything like that. I mean, that's a problem with this. Anything good that you might be able to prospectively say about it is just ruin. It's got this terrible, shitty twist that ruins anything good about the prior hour and a half, of which there is not much good to begin with. But if there's anything, it's that there's a couple of decent kills, and Mamie Gummer is really going for it in a supporting performance. Like,
she's not good in it.
She's not great, but she thinks that this is her shot at a supporting actress nomination, and she's really going for it. That's about all. That's all the life there is on screen for the first hour. So
I guess
touch on that. But the point is, the twist ruins both those things, because it turns out there weren't any actual kills.
No,
that didn't happen. They weren't real people. And even if that had been the best performance of her generation, the twist would still ruin it. Like, you wouldn't nominate this, because it turns out, like, because of the twist that she's not a real person, she's a fragment of a dissociative personality, whatever. It's like that kind of excuses or erases any sort of like acting choices that might have been
everyone has like sort of a broad idea of like, well, I'm the goofy part of her personality. I'm the childlike part. I'm the snitch part, I guess. I like they all have sort of like they're trying to be I'm this aspect of a full person, and that's what they're hitting real hard. I don't think any of them are good. There's no good performances in the ward. They're only bad and terrible, in my opinion. I mean, it feels like no one had an approach here. Like that, like just what I said is the beginning and end of the character work that anyone was doing, that the writer was doing, that John Carpenter was bringing to it. Like this is passionless. I mean,
I feel like Carpenter was off in Video Village smoking weed and playing Xbox, because there's just no way he was involved. It's so lifeless and just perfunctory is I think the word I wrote down. Perfunctory. It feels very I mean, from the twist itself to everything about it, the way it's shot, the dialogue itself. I mean, it's so perfunctory. It's either like a student film or it's somebody like it's a TV entry that somebody knocked off because the network had an order and they filled it, and that was it.
Well, yeah, this was sort of a tax dodge movie, right? Like, it wasn't released in like 8 theaters or something ridiculous like that.
Definitely, yeah.
To be able to market as a theatrical release and then dumped.
Which they do that for everything nowadays. But but it was, I guess, a little bit unique to do that in 2010 for no particular reason. I mean, this made like $8,000 in theaters. That's what it did. So yeah, technically a theatrical release. And who would have faith in this? Who would be like, yeah, we're gonna do a real push on that one? You know, you see this as your final product, and you're like, I don't even know what I can sell this on. You know, the ghost is terrible looking ghost. I can't believe it's a Greg Nicotero. I saw his name on the credits. I was like, wonder what he's got to bring. Oh, the worst thing of his career, maybe. This is just sort of a zombie face version of Norman Bates' mom. That's the ghost. Yeah,
it's a zombie thing. I don't know. It's whatever. Like, it's not inspired. I didn't think it looked shockingly bad or anything. The way that like the Ghosts of Mars looked shockingly bad.
I prefer the Ghosts of Mars. They, at least I can be like, well, it looks like Slipknot. That's more than I can say about this. This looks like nothing.
It looked like basically somebody had just slapped on latex and painted it gray. It was not good. It was not good.
Certainly, that was like a Halloween costume. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
but I guess Michael Myers does too, but in a great way.
Right.
Yes. But I mean, Michael Myers is impeccably designed, even if they say that, well, we just threw that together. I don't believe it. It's a perfect design. This is like the absence of design in this film. Like, it feels like they made no choices, really. You know, they bought everyone a pair of pajamas. They did nothing to the location that they got to shoot the whole film at, and they did as little as they could on the ghost. It is, I mean, this has no texture or flavor at all. It's so not John Carpenter. Even his bad movies feel like John Carpenter most of the time, you know?
I think the lack of Carpenter's score makes a huge impact.
Man, that would have helped.
I mean, that would help some. I mean, I think to some degree this film was still in the shitter regardless, but it was, right. But the lack, and it's interesting that you look on the internet, he basically said, I guess they asked him to, they said something, he said, I'm too old, but then of course he turns around and does a bunch of scores and albums after that, so who knows what was going on.
I mean, he's just checked out. He doesn't want to direct anymore. Yeah. I mean, that's what he said after Ghost of Mars. He was like, well, what am I doing this for? And I guess he came back for money or just for the hell of it, or you know, who knows? Maybe he wanted not to have Ghost of Mars be his last film, which I guess mission accomplished.
Technically accomplished, but not really.
In between those, he did 2 episodes of Masters of Horror, which he says kind of reignited his interest in filmmaking to some extent.
Yeah, I watched those the last couple nights. Well, yeah, let's talk about the bad one first. The bad one is pro-life, about, you know, Ron Perlman as a psycho abortion rights or abortion opponent that assaults an abortion clinic where his daughter is trying to abort a demon fetus. And that one, it's not lit shot very well. And I think the main thing that the mistake it makes is showing the demon up like in its full puppet glory, like too much up front. I think if you had cut around that, it would have been more effective to just show glimpses of it, because the full puppet version is just not threatening. It's just a big sort of scaly minotaur, and it kind of kills any vibes that are going on there. There's some like creepy stuff in there, which she's giving birth and like crab legs start jutting out of her vagina.
Premise wise, that I think that actually has quite a bit of promise. There's a lot of things that could happen in pro-life, but don't. It feels thrown together. Even with Ron Perlman in what should be a good role for him, it's kind of just like, well, you know, you're just sort of screaming.
But it's also sort of got the Prince of Darkness problem, where it's got a like sort of main, I guess, protagonist couple, but they are the dullest part of anything going on, and they do nothing the entire time. I'm like, why are we focused on you two? I have no idea. But yeah, that was not a good one. The other one, Cigarette Burns, actually quite good. I think in some ways John is going to be angry at me for this, but I think it's a better version of Mouth of Madness.
No, I agree. Actually, I mean, I don't think it's better, but I think it's very much in keeping with Mouth of Madness. It is a Mouth of Madness-esque entry for Carpenter, and I like it. It's good. It's not as good in my opinion, but it's the similar ideas, fun cast, kind of gnarly violence. It's and it that has a written from a place of passion for filmmaking, and that's kind of cool. Like it's he doesn't really do meta stuff, Carpenter, but that one is him kind of doing a movie about movies, and that's neat. It's kind of neat. I know you hate
that. But it's sort of cursed object thing of that Mouth of Madness is doing, except in this case it's a lost film rather than which I think that making it about a movie print works better than making it like as the movie being the thing that drives people to madness works better than making it like an airport paperback author who's doing it. I think that's something that just never quite settles for me in Mouth of Madness. And then in the climax, like the gore that they go with is memorable and gross in a way that the Muppet demons of Mouth of Madness never quite reach for me. So that's why I give it the edge. It does have a sort of there's a conceit there that something that kind of keeps Cigarette Burns from being elite is there's a weird conceit at the beginning where like the protagonist is shown something absolutely insane and has like no response to it. And like tells his projectionist friend the next scene, like, that guy kind of gives me the creeps. And it's like, well, yeah, he showed you a pale, chained up, mutilated demi-human in his yard. And you just didn't respond to that. Like, that's so freaking weird that I think that's the main thing that holds that back from like really saying, oh man, that was actually excellent.
It's kind of trashy. It's not particularly well thought out, so it's not like it's not top tier Carpenter.
The stuff with the intestines at the end is going to stick with me.
You see what he does, Michael, is he spools it into a projector,
a film projector.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Into a he spools his intestines into a film projector, and
yes. Well, if you're Udo Kier,
yes,
and kind of like lets it run and it yanks it's yeah, it's Udo Kier.
Oh, Udo Kier.
That's memorable. That's so much more memorable than anything in the war. Yeah. Which, like, what are the somebody gets electroshocked to death? Except not really, because it's not a real. It turns out it's not actually a person. It's a figment of a fictional character's imagination.
There's a slit throat, the electrocution, and there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing memorable about them. They're very, again, perfunctory. That's the word for the ward.
The electroshock one, they'd set up that if you use it without something to bite on, it'll shatter your teeth. So I thought they were going to do that, and they didn't even do that. Nope. They didn't even do that. So are we already like out of things to say about the ward here? I didn't think it would be this short. I mean, I knew it was a bad, boring movie with not much going on, but we haven't hit 20 minutes, and we had
What are you supposed to talk about, like the character development or the relationships between the multiple personalities? Like, no, it's like you feel like a total asshole investing in any of that.
I mean, really, out of my notes, the only thing I can think of is to say I thought the title sequence at least looked semi-professional with all the glass shattering. I'm like, it wasn't as cheap as I expected it to look, so I'm like, all right, I'll give it points for that. But yeah,
it occasionally looks like a real movie is the best I could say about the
yeah. I mean, that's what I was talking about, the bare level of technical and technical competence. Like, it sometimes looks like an actual movie.
It made me laugh out loud once.
I can say.
In the sort of denouement when after the climax of the movie is Amber Heard throwing herself out of a window in the midst of a psychotic break and falling a couple stories to the lawn below, and Jared Harris's doctor responds to this by being like, "And you're cured." Like she asks the next day after she's accepted the multiple personality shit that when can I leave? And he's like, well, about 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, now hang on, sir. I am but a Juris Doctor. But I think even in the 60s, You're probably going to want to see more than 2 days of observation after this character spends a month going through a violent dissociative episode that culminates in them throwing themselves out of a window in your office. Like, maybe you want more than 2 days of an observation. I don't know.
But did she actually throw herself out of the window? Was that symbolizing the death of that personality?
Yeah, it was symbolizing the death of that personality. It was less dramatic.
Well, then how is he so sure that she's cured? Yeah. Which obviously, for the sake of the final, Carrie twist ending, she has to pop back up. She's not even. And whatever. I guess Jared Harris is not the best doctor in the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that the very final shot of the mirror. I was like, okay, that's junior high creative writing ending right there.
I liked that she didn't just show up in the fog of the mirror, though.
It's not worse than Ghosts of Mars ending.
That she came out from inside it rather than just wiping the fog off the mirror. Yes, it was funnier that way.
Yeah, like Candyman. Yes, exactly.
I haven't seen Ghosts of Mars, John, so I can't speak to that ending.
It has a worse ending than The Ward.
Oh my God!
In most other ways, it's better though.
Okay, all right. I'm probably going to take your word for it. So
no, don't watch it. It's a bad one. It's more interesting than this one, but it's still not good. Hey, this is kind of like John Carpenter's Sucker Punch, right? Is it a better or worse film than Sucker Punch?
Probably worse, just because I haven't seen Sucker Punch, but just from the trailers, it has more going on visually.
It certainly does.
I'm actually going to vote for better because it ends sooner.
Okay.
It is a good 220 or so, that Sucker Punch.
I've given Sucker Punch multiple tries because I really wanted to like it, and it gets worse each time I watch it, and it gets longer each time I watch it. So
I believe that, but you will never give The Ward a second chance, right?
No, I will not. Yeah.
No. We're all on limited time here on this earth. But okay, again, defense of a movie I haven't seen. Sucker Punch is at least like upfront about its sort of fantasy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hallucination conceit, right?
Yes.
So it's bullshit is front and center. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And visually, it's clearly way stronger than The Ward, but it's also way longer, and it's borderline incoherent, despite the fact that the framing device, and it's just it's not.
It's way more up its own ass for sure. But that kind of makes it more entertaining. It's that sort of thing.
It's got it's committed. In a way, The Ward is not committed to anything.
Oh, there's a nice pun right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I think that
either film could have been called Committed. Yeah.
That's right.
We're going to be, you're going to hear us say it probably a couple times as we're doing the bottom end of the Carpenter rankings, giving something the edge just because it's shorter. So that's going to
They're all 90 minutes. What? Okay.
That is a great thing about him. But I think there's one of his movies goes over 2 hours. Anyway, before we do rankings though, we have one other bit of housekeeping business, right? Which is we need Michael as our guest, and for enduring The Ward with us, gets to choose the next director that we move on to from a very short list that we are operating from now.
I wasn't given a list, so
well, you're about to be given a list.
Did you have?
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, I thought it was just I get to choose. No. Okay, all right, that's fine.
Did you have one in mind for Blue
I
Sky?
do, but let's wait and see what you guys say and see if anything syncs up. So
okay, the three that we were queuing up for next were Michael Mann, Terry Gilliam, or the Coen brothers.
Yes, sir. Now, don't answer immediately. Don't answer.
I won't. No, just say I will say two of your. We were in line when I got down to my final three. Two of mine were on your list.
Perfect. That's great. Okay. Who was not? Just out of curiosity, who's written out immediately here?
Because I really wanted to see if I could. I really thought about Snyder. I really thought about Snyder for a while.
Not. Absolutely not. We're being careful this time, man.
I figured you wouldn't. But I still was like,
No, we're not doing that.
How many has he done now? Is he
11? I think
7. Oh my God! Really?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I forgot about those goddamn guardian owls of Ga'Hoole.
The owls of Ga'Hoole. Absolutely. We would have sucker punched, of course. We would have had to visit the Army of the Dead.
He's got a new one dropping in December.
Oh God, the Rebel Moon Netflix
Rebel Moon
thing. Oh yeah.
We would have had to do the Snyder cut again, though. We already did know the Snyder cut.
My reasons for wanting to suggest Snyder were both a little punitive for watching make watch The Ward, but also a little selfish because I'm a fan of a lot of his stuff, so I figured it'd be a good way to get back on the show and argue with you guys.
Well, I want to get back to doing movies that I like. I feel like the Carpenter one was starting to drag on my soul, having to spend so much time coming back week after week and saying bad things about somebody who I like was sucking some of the fun out of it.
Okay. So you Coen brothers, Michael Mann, and Terry Gilliam. Okay.
Yes. That is 12 films for Michael Mann, 13 films for Terry Gilliam, and 18 films for the Coens. And we'd probably also do
only 18. Huh?
Only, Well, we're not doing the individual projects, you see.
Oh, we can do Macbeth. Why not?
Well, we kind of already did, but sure, I guess we could do Macbeth.
Yeah.
We could. Why not, indeed? And his new thing, the other Coens, one of the Coens has a new one that would be out by the time we got to it. So I guess if we could do 20 Coens.
Well, look, 18 Carpenters was a lot, but I have no worries about doing as many Coen Brothers movies as you want to, because they're all there's interesting things about all of them. And unlike, there's not a ward to be found there, even like they've got one or two bad movies, depending who you ask, but they are not just inert in the way that Village of the Damned or The Ward are.
Yeah, I mean, the worst we get, we're talking like, The Lady Killers or Hail Caesar. Those aren't the most exciting films to talk about, but they're interesting. There's stuff going on there. And also some of the best films that have ever been made. Probably, I don't know.
There's that too.
Like 10 or 12 of the best films ever made.
Doesn't sound like you guys need me here for this choice at all.
No, we do. We do. That's the thing.
It's not up to us.
Consider Michael Mann. He's got a brand new movie coming out. Ferrari. It's happening this year for his return. It's been like almost a decade since Black Hat.
You want to talk about several of the best films ever made as well?
Yep, right there. Yeah, and we'd probably do Luck. I think we were talking about Luck, the HBO horse racing show. We need an excuse to finally get through Luck. So Michael Mann, right there, and we got Last Mohicans, Manhunter, Heat, Insider, tons of movies.
Yeah, think about Michael Mann. Heat is, in many ways the ultimate crime movie. It's like a Mount Rushmore movie for an entire genre.
It's the Dark Knight of crime films, you might say.
Wow. I think a lot of film fans just absolutely started projectile vomiting because of the reversed order there. But yes.
Well, my point was going to be that there's serious-minded people could make a case that Heat is the best film ever made, and I think it's his third best movie, probably. My third favorite of mine. So there's
some good ones.
There's a case to be
man.
made there too. And Terry Gilliam, obviously, if you want to talk about just interesting movies, I mean, every one of them's got a lot going on.
Every single one. There's some massive
except maybe Zero Theorem
in that. Well, that's the thing about Gilliam, is that not unlike Carpenter, there's a distinct a decline in the last years, the last parts of the list. But the Gilliam declines are all very interesting failures. Every single one of them has lots of stuff to talk about. Like the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus is not a simple, straightforward film. There's stuff there, and it's all kind of attempts to recapture something that he has lost, and there's a great novelistic quality to the rise and fall of Terry Gilliam's career, is all I'm saying. I think there's a story there. And
the knock might be that in my head, the decline era has got like three films in it, and we look at it might be like 8.
No. It's I'm looking at it right now, and it's 3 to 5 depending on your definition. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's two kind of in liminal ground that well, it's the Brothers Grimm and Tideland, which I don't know. I have things to
haven't
say
seen
about
either.
Brothers Grimm, and Tideland is one of the most one of the least watchable films ever made. So that would be an interesting one at least. So yeah. So 3 options here. 3. We've talked about all of them now at this point. What would be your choice, Michael? What are we going to be talking about right now, or not right now, but immediately after Carpenter here and into 2024?
Well, I will say for me, it's down to the Coens and Mann. I agree that Gilliam's a really interesting filmmaker, but since you're putting this choice on me, he's probably the one I would easily put at third place. I think for me, it's Mann. I really think Michael Mann is a really great, strong next choice. That's who I'm going to put out there for you guys.
All right.
I kind of was hoping Mann would be the second person we did after our initial Tarantino run, and people just kept not picking him. So
I think we were both kind of hoping for Mann, to be honest. I think we were both ready for Michael Mann, and
I would have been totally fine with the Coens too. They both made some of my favorite films ever, and I'm excited.
But Mann's always been on our list, and so now it's happening. Next thing we take on is going to be Michael Mann and his 12 films, 13 counting Luck. And,
the only problem with Mann is now I have to find how do we find The Keep?
Yeah,
it can be done. It can be done. I watched The Keep not too long ago. I don't remember how or where, but
I've never seen it.
It's not great, but it's interesting. Like you want to see him do a weird Nazi fantasy film. It's not really his kind of thing, as you might expect, but it's
goddamn well I want to see that. We've done like 150 of these. You know that Michael Mann doing a Nazi fantasy horror movie is exactly what I want to see at this point, even though I know it's not actually good. Like,
it has. Well, we'll talk about The Keep pretty soon. Probably this year we'll be talking about The Keep. It's early on, so that and all of them. We're talking about Hannibal Lecter. Going to talk about Daniel Day-Lewis. Going to talk about Al Pacino a lot. It's going to be great. All right, that's awesome. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Hey, you're Michael.
Talking about James Belushi.
Yeah, I'm Michael M. I'm another Michael M.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man, we're gonna have a whole Robert Prosky segment. We got things to look forward to.
Absolutely, coming up soon, man. He's Thief, the Robert Prosky film of note. Okay, so think about who you want to talk about for that one, Michael. We'll we're not going to promise you anything right now. I think.
Oh, I already know. I already know which film I'm going to be making a bid for. So we're good.
Cool. All right. Well, that's
all right,
that's that.
Let's do the rankings then.
Yeah.
Join us for the rankings of the John Carpenter films, Michael.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'll have to set out 18 through 15, but then I can join in at 14.
Okay. Well, because there are 18 theatrical releases, counting The Ward and its weird, asterisk of a theatrical run. But I compared John and I's lists. We don't have any real difference for the bottom three. It's The Ward, The Village of the Damned, and Memoirs of an Invisible Man. We have
in that order.
Three. It's those three are arbitrary for me. Which one's the actual worst? I mean, I don't want to sit through the multiple personality bullshit again. But also, The Village of the Damned would put me right to sleep. I guess Invisible Man is the most watchable of the three by virtue of having like 40% of a prime Chevy Chase performance going on.
It's got that guy with the fun Matt Berry voice.
That's true. It's got that guy. That's all it takes.
It's got some special effects that are not bad, and it's Sam Neill's good in it ish, and but those are a solid bottom three. And I can't imagine many people disagreeing, to be honest.
I mean, the Ward is dead last in my list, so on that we're completely agreed on that.
I look for defenders of the Ward, and they're hard to find, but they're out there. And
really?
They all sound like they're full of shit to me. I'm afraid. I'm sorry. They all sound just like, if this wasn't Carpenter, you would hate this movie. It feels like a little bit running defense on a favorite.
The only thing I can think of is somebody sincerely liking The Ward is if it was like their first twist ending that they ever came across somehow, like had never seen The Sixth Sense or Usual Suspects or any of the ones that like set off the craze that this is
Identity.
Writing in 6 years too late to try and follow up.
Identity, the James Mangold film with John Cusack.
I hated that movie.
Yeah, it's a hateful film. That came out before The Ward.
Like 10 years before The Ward.
I don't think it's that early, but
like 8.
Yeah, maybe. But it sort of like definitively does the exact thing The Ward is doing. It's a film that most people were really quite mad about, and I think they'd be there with The Ward too if anyone ever bothered to see it or give it any thought at all.
Right,
but it's somehow less creative and interesting than the all-time worst offender. Identity.
Well, it has a worse cast.
It does. Much worse. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to number 15 for you, which I actually have one tick higher at 14, which is Ghosts of Mars. And that is a movie too that is badly cast, in addition to being badly lit and badly written.
Afraid so. Feels very autopilot. Like it's a lot of things in that movie could have been okay, but it just feels like no one's best effort, and kind of like a film no one wants to be part of.
Michael, is that one you haven't seen?
I have not seen that one.
Okay, well, it is Ice Cube, Pam Grier, and Jason Statham fighting Slipknot on Mars, and don't fall for it. I know that sounds incredibly watchable. It is not. I don't know how it's not, but it's amazing how unenjoyable it manages to be.
It feels a little like Pitch Black if Pitch Black were incompetent. That's that. Yeah, it's kind of how it feels. Yeah.
Yeah, when Pitch Black eats your lunch that hard, it's pretty damning.
Yeah, it's
I think Pitch Black is a good solid B monster movie. I'm no disparaging on that one.
Well, it's not. Yeah, I mean, the reason I bring that up is because it is a good version of the things that Ghosts of Mars fails at.
Yeah.
But it's still just a B movie, right? It's not
absolutely
a really special anything.
No, it's solid B creature feature, which I'm a big fan of. So
it's really disheartening that Carpenter could miss that mark at that stage of his career. Because that's where his heart lies. But his heart was not in Ghosts of Mars. It does not feel like. The next one we're talking about, I'm guessing this is the last one Michael hasn't seen, is Dark Star.
Actually, I have seen that.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's been a long time.
John and I have that at 14 and 13, respectively. The main one that it's rough student film. I mainly give it the edge over some of these less illogical ones because it is short and strong.
It has good parts, It has bad parts, but I think the good parts are at least half the film, and they're legitimately good. Like there's neat sequences in that, funny sequences in that.
I mean, it's
creative sequences.
It's been a long time. So on my list of 14, it's number 12. It is above Vampires in the Ward, but it's below everything else.
It's not the
you're
most
a vampires hater, huh?
I don't. Yeah, it's not.
All right. Well, we'll get to that. The way we're structuring this such that people's top, we'll save people's higher ranked ones for the last.
Okay.
This now, as John and I are still one and off each other, but chasing each other at 12 and 11, I have Escape from L.A. Just a lesser version of Escape from New York in pretty much all respects.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I think I would make a case that Steve Buscemi is a lateral move from Ernest Borgnine, but in every other respect.
There are things in that movie I think are better than Escape from New York. There's a few things that I think he improves on.
The ending, I guess?
Very much the ending. I talked about this.
That's interesting. I've only seen it once, and it's like I feel like I know that since it's come out, it's gone through like reappraisals, and I know there are a lot of folks who really do like it, and there's like, once you understand it's not the same as Escape from New York, once you get on board with its tone, it's a lot better. And I've been meaning at some point to revisit it, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So,
well, I can attest that I saw it in the theater when I was a kid and had never seen Escape from New York, and in that context, it does not work. My friends and I did not like it at the time. I mean, part of it was the PlayStation quality CGI was really bad, even in its moment,
right?
But the snake character, you can tell that there's something, that there's a lot going on. It's riffing on stuff, but it did not entertain. I mean, one of the things I guess that I would say an asset to it is it does seem to come, the satire aspects, I guess. He seems to be genuinely contemptuous of LA in a way that he was not of New York.
Yeah, I like that. That's I feel it feels a little more like specific in its targets, and also I think a little less confused in just what kind of movie it is. Like, it is a comedy. It is a satirical comedy, over the top comedy in a lot of ways. It has.
You think New York is confused about its tone?
A little bit. I feel like that movie is a lot funnier than it realizes sometimes. It feels like it's taking it. I don't know. It's tough. It takes itself very seriously, but I think it kind of is also quite ridiculous on its face a lot of the time. And
okay, well, we'll talk about New York as we go up. They're going to stick with the conceit here. I have it much higher, as does Michael.
I have it about the same place. I think they're very similar films. Part of that is L.A. moved up for me this time. I've never been the biggest New York fan, but L.A. I was kind of like, you know what? I'm more allowing of this than I used to be.
Yeah, you put them right next to each other on your list, which is shocking and disappointing, young man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I didn't get. That was the biggest surprise when I saw your rank, because we did a whole episode of Escape from New York. I didn't get the sense that you were that cool on it.
I'm not like overwhelmed by it. I think it's I think it has issues. It's kind of got an undeniable premise. I just don't think it's the best version possible of that premise. I think it's I think
it's iconic.
Yeah, it's a great premise.
I mean, I agree with both of you, but we can wait and talk about it if John, if Al wants to wait and talk about it later.
We'll circle back to that as we get to the top level. Now, as we get to, we have one of the bigger gaps between John and I, because we're mostly simpatico on this, outside of Escape from New York and this one, which is Christine. John has it at number 10. I have it down at 15, because this is one that it's not a bad, like a terrible movie, but I just can't imagine ever revisiting it. I think just the premise of it doesn't work for me. And that disappoints me extra with the, imprimatur of both Stephen King and John Carpenter, who I revere, working on this thing that I just am not interested in.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's not neither of them at their best or anything. But they both have an immense amount of authorial voice in that film. Christine feels like John Carpenter and like Stephen King at once. Like it is a lot of things you want from either of them are present in Christine, I would argue. I not the score. I would like a John Carpenter score for sure. But the sleazebag supporting cast, that's very King and very Carpenter both at once. Robert Prosky is doing a great job in that film, as we just spoke about. It's some of his best sleazebag work.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
And there's cool stuff. There's cool effects. The car inflating itself back up after getting crunched, all that stuff. Obviously it is a killer car movie at the end of the day, but I think it's got panache and personality.
Yeah, I don't. The car reassembly itself just makes it all play cartoony to me.
It is a Stephen King, John Carpenter collaboration. Of course, it's going to be a little cartoony.
Oh, okay. But they both those guys have done horror stuff that genuinely frightens me, which we can talk about going forward too. One of the, I guess I was surprised how low you had The Fog.
I had The Fog low
because I thought that I thought that you liked that movie more than me, but I put it at 9. You put it at 13.
13.
And Michael has it at 6.
I have it at 6. Yeah.
I thought you dug the pirate ghosts.
No, I'm disappointed by the pirate ghosts. I want more. I want more. I think it's a very shallow, limited film. I mean, it's all tone, but I don't really like any of the aspects of that movie. The narrative I think is weak. The characters are, aside from Adrienne Barbeau and The Lighthouse, I don't care about anybody in it. And you have, luminaries in that film. You got Jamie Lee Curtis and Hal Holbrook and of course, Mustache himself.
See, I'd argue it's such a weird film because I don't think that you're wrong in the sense of it could be a lot more. But for me, first off, it's what a friend of mine would call like a vibe film. There's just a real vibe to it, and I think that the hook of the premise is absolutely fantastic. I love the backstory. I think it's just this brilliant ghost story. You guys, without doing a whole nother podcast about that movie itself, I mean, you guys know that it was too short. They had to add things in. So it sounds like the movie that wasn't fleshed out enough to begin with, but I don't know, man. There's just something, I don't know if it's because that I love the opening hook with the story being told. I love that it's got one of the most iconic closing shots in a Carpenter film, and that's saying something. And just, I don't know. There's such a great spooky vibe to it that I'm willing to forgive a lot of that stuff. I think it works on that level so well that It makes me sad, John, that you don't like it that much.
It's a film I've tried a few times, you know, to really get into, and I've it's respectable. It's fine. It's
Right.
just I feel like that opening ghost story with Houseman is kind of the peak of the film. You know, it's kind of the most perfect version of what that movie's trying to get across. It's no shock that the thing was too short because it has no real plot. It's a 5-minute ghost story, to be told around a campfire, and as such, I think it kind of, I don't know if it drags. It's not a very long film, but it kind of just it never really has that great defining moment for me. It's kind of just a collection of pirate ghost.
It's missing a killer sequence somewhere.
I
mean, Barbeau stuck on her own is kind of the most thing, but there's nothing like you get in The Thing or Halloween or whatever, where there's these classic sort of horror sequences. It becomes kind of a Siege thing because all of his movies become Siege movies at a certain point. If he's not careful, and it's maybe the least effective version of that outside of Ghost of Mars. My biggest gripe with that was just putting a hard cap on the number of people the ghosts were going to kill, even if they got their way fully. I just think
I think that's
unforced error.
It's like 6 and they kill 4 about a half hour in before you even know what's up, and then it's just
that was a really weird.
Okay.
That was as Al put, that was a really weird storytelling, unforced error that I'm still surprised that got put in there. And it's one of the films of all of Carpenter's films. It seems like the one that would be ripest for a remake, but we already know that they did that, and that was just
it's quite bad. It's much worse. Yes.
Oh,
it's really bad.
It's the Ward levels bad. It's worse than the Ward, maybe. Yeah.
It's worse. I made it 10 minutes into the film and I couldn't go forward. I mean, it was so bad I couldn't do it. So.
Oh, you missed a great sort of nonsense horrifying twist ending on that one.
No.
I mean, not great. You missed a horrible one, but it's amusing in how ineffective it is. But now we're reaching sort of the inflection point or the midpoint.
Where everything
at least for John and I, we have vampires at 9 and 10 respectively, and this is you have down at the bottom of your list, Michael. So
it's second to last on my list. I think you guys are giving that way too much credit. Way too much credit.
It's watchable in a way that some of these others I find pretty inert.
It has a B movie swagger to it, and attitude, and energy, and movement, and things like that put it above a good stack of this. And there's things that make it kind of its own. James Woods as the lead is for me a benefit, and there's some good action in it, some very good action in it, which isn't the most common thing for Carpenter, as we've discussed a bit here. That's come as a bit of a surprise. Turns out maybe he's not the best action director.
Right. But is that stuff exactly what makes you not like it, Michael? Is it the sleaze that turns you off?
Well, again, I at the risk of losing all credibility with anybody who's listening, I've only seen the film once on initial release, and so my reaction.
You don't need to. No, it's not like you got to get back to vampires. You need to fix your opinion on vampires.
I think to me, it was just a film with a limited budget. Really showed the things you guys talked about on your podcast, or what really dragged it down me for just a really undistinguished villain.
He sucks. He sucks, no doubt.
Literally, just sucks.
Because he's a vampire. Right.
Yeah. I didn't really like James Woods that much in the role. It was like it was a little too much like cocaine fueled, whether it was or not. It just was a little much for me.
He'll sue you for that. Be careful. It does. It seems to me at times like he's trying. The character is trying, or James Woods is trying really hard to be like extra pissed off in every scene, even when the subject of the conversation doesn't seem to warrant it exactly.
Yeah.
But he just wants to keep the volume up. And again, if he had a better scene partner in the back half of that movie, maybe some of that would play better. But that priest is just such a nothing of a performance.
Tim Guinea, once again, Al not passing up the chance to slander the good name of Tim Guinea, who, by the way,
shots fired.
Also has a guest spot in Iron Man as the basically the guy with the headphones when Tony goes over to the Gulmira. He's the guy running the
on the ground.
He's the military guy who is calling in the planes.
Oh, is he one of the ones killed immediately during the?
No. He's the guy that ends up talking to Rhodey when Stark goes over there. Mm-hmm. Rhodey's talking to another military guy. That's Tim Guinea.
Well, good for him. Yeah, good for Tim Guinea.
Anyway,
he brings as much character to that role with 2 lines as he does in this entire movie, where he's like kind of carrying the back half of the movie.
Like I said, I rank vampires way. I can't imagine ever revisiting it. I didn't like it. I just thought it was cheap and shrill. Yeah,
you're not wrong.
You could watch the first. You could revisit the first half hour and then go to the bathroom and never come back. It'll be fine. You know? Okay, moving on. I guess here's another sort of gap between us. Starman. Mm-hmm. John's got 8, Michael 9. I have it down at 12.
It's not
that's not too bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, mostly we're, like I said, we're mostly 15 out of these 18. We're pretty close together. But this it doesn't do too much to me. Yeah, I missed out on this one because my daughter was just born. And this is not a bad movie by any stretch, but it's just not what I want to see Carpenter doing. It feels like it's not playing to any of his strengths. He's just delivering a perfectly competent movie about an alien, sort of not quite drugging, but kind of hypnotizing a woman into sleeping with him to cure her grief.
And also giving her an alien hybrid baby, then fucking off and saying, have fun. Raising our kid.
I mean, Bridges kind of sells that. Like, it doesn't come off as terrible as we can make it sound pretty easily.
I watched that for the first time, I think 5 years ago, at the behest of a friend who I think is still weeping at my reaction to it, and I found it pretty. I found the whole thing about him taking on her dead husband's form and using that to basically seduce her. I'm like, I think there's a whole lot of ethical quandaries going on with this, and it felt like there was 2 or 3 different movies being mashed up at the same time that I don't think it ever cohered that well.
It's sometimes it's a little like Ghost, sometimes it's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and sometimes it's much creepier. Sometimes it's a creepy John Carpenter movie. I kind of wanted the movie with Charles Martin Smith. Him, I felt like there was a really interesting movie with that. Oh, it's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, yeah.
But that's that's a better movie. Periodically, the film goes, "Oh yeah, we've got this guy," and then they leave him alone for a while. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of Carpenter doing a different brand of sci-fi than the horror tinge stuff necessarily, but I don't know if the sentiment of this is really what he's best suited for.
Oh, I think he slow rolls that, actually. I think he makes that a little less apparent than it would be in the Spielberg version, and he's kind of doing a Spielberg film here, kind of, an Amblin film at least. And so,
but we want Carpenter to do Carpenter movies, because he's one of the people who has his own type of movie, and
it's true.
And that can be a few different things, but this is him doing somebody else's shtick.
I mean, the thing that really stuck out to my mind for Starman, that really sticks out, other than I feel like Jeff Bridges playing a brain damaged bird in human form, was
that sounds really negative, but it's actually pretty spot on. He's a pretty good. It's a good performance of a brain damaged bird.
Terrific, yeah.
Is the final shot of Karen Allen, and
she's so good in it.
My real exposure, my real reference for her is Raiders of the Lost Ark. So seeing her in this role was actually really, and she's just again, to borrow another word from June Kim, who's another guest on your show, frequent guest. She's luminous in the film, and that final shot, especially of her in the crater, is just, it's breathtaking. It's really it's a kind of beautiful shot we don't get a lot in Carpenter films, because usually his shots, while often beautiful and really well composed, have tinges of horror or dread or tension, and this was just this really just beautiful shot of her looking incredible in it, and that was really beautiful. But the film itself,
I prefer the opening shots of her where she's pantsless, for I am a big perv, you see.
Yeah, pantsless, drinking wine, thinking about her dead husband.
Just the way I like to. No, we're talking about, there's some of these movies have a certain habitat where they seem to be ideal. Like this, Starman is a classic HBO movie for me. Like back in the day, HBO pre-streaming, just turn on a Sunday afternoon, and it's there, and it's kind of pleasant, and it's engaging enough that you don't turn away. But I don't know. There's more when you turn something on streaming. It's a more active choice, and it feels like I need a stronger pull to keep me in there and to keep me off my phone and all that. And Starman's just a little too reserved for that. It's sort of it became like a little bit of a background watch for me. Yeah. The Fog, I think, is also one that I think I mentioned that in the Fog episode, but it's natural habitat. It belongs on USA Up All Night with commercial breaks.
Yeah.
You can kind of drop in and just see whatever. It's like, oh yeah, ghosts. There's fog, whatever. But
I don't think that's a plus for the Fog. But I
don't know if that's really a plus for Starman either. But
there's sort of an everyday kind of, I don't know. It's pre-CGI sci-fi magic. Like it exists in our world, like like it's something that is tactile, that it feels more magic somehow for being less outlandish, and a lot of '80s movies captured that. I think Starman is in that lineage, and so I would put that up to something like like Close Encounters or like I don't know this is going to be damning, but the Goonies, it's that sort of kind of. There's adventure out there kind of feel that
it can be grouped into the Amblin thing. It can be grouped into a certain like era of sci-fi or a certain sort of not soft sci-fi in the sense of having a lot of like fantasy elements exactly, but soft edged sci-fi.
Yeah, well, it's
like,
not really hard
sci-fi or whatever,
either.
But it's not. It's going to be the lesser version of all of those categories. Like. You're not gonna. It's not gonna recommend. Oh, if you're into Amblin stuff, that's gonna be the last one you get to on my recommendations list.
I didn't get a huge Amblin. I mean, I get the comparison. I didn't get a huge Amblin feel from it, but I do get the comparison. I guess I don't think it's
there's no kids.
There's no kids.
Yeah,
thank God. But yeah. Anyway, all right, that's Starman.
That's Starman. All right, let's go. John and I both at number 7. We reconverge with Prince of Darkness. Michael, you have that one slightly higher, although all your list is a little bit higher because you're missing a couple. So, but it seems like we all kind of we place it in about the same area. That this is on sort of the outer edge of the really good ones.
That top of the middle, bottom of the top, something like that.
Right. Yes, one of those, one or the other of those, and it's a movie that sort of exceeds its grasp to a degree.
Yeah, it's more. I think this is probably the one where I excuse the problems the most, maybe.
Yes,
because the things that are good in it are really fun and really really worthwhile. So I'm kind of just like, I don't care if the leads are terrible. It's fine. It don't matter. There's enough to enjoy.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I mean, obviously I rank it a little higher, and I mean it's top 5 for me for Carpenter. But yeah, I mean I'm not blind to the problems, and I'm and not blind to where the budget is limiting it, but I think the things that work so well that I don't care. Like it's also my personal favorite. It's my favorite Carpenter score. I think that's his best one. So, but yeah, it's
Halloween's
that's
pretty
tough.
good.
Yeah, I got to give it to Halloween.
See, and I have a really weird. Halloween is obviously the most iconic, without no argument. But for me. Like the Prince of Darkness score to me works on its own more than Halloween does, because Halloween is so inextricably linked to the film. Like I'm a weirdo that I would place Carpenter's score for Halloween 2018 over the original Halloween score.
That's just a really good remix. Whatever. I mean,
it is.
But you're dinging the movie for being too good about integrating its score.
Well, I know. I said it's a weird rubric to impose on it. I get that. So, but yeah.
But yeah, Prince of Darkness. It's doing stuff that you just don't get from I don't know, Platinum Dunes or Makes All the Time. The way that Halloween's been ripped off so much. Nobody's really ripping off Prince of Darkness. I mean, it's not a whole subgenre of frozen Lucifer concentrate movies.
I'm almost surprised they haven't remade that one at this point. Like, I mean, that's the only way you get something that odd, really. It would be just we'll just remake the thing because it already exists. It's IP.
I grew up kind of real. I wanted to be a paleontologist. I was real science oriented, and then I fell into the evangelical subculture for a while, which I've been out for quite a while too. So Prince of Darkness really hits a lot of sweet spots for me. So
okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and that's, I think we kind of glossed over that, but yeah, the way it does invoke sort of religious horror, which is a kind of difficult thing to do, outside of The Exorcist. That's not always that successful. Yeah. While also doing the sort of, again, that's a weird movie about frozen Lucifer concentrate. That's way more about particle physics for some reason. Than it is about
science and religion come together to fight the devil or something. Or what, the science version of the devil?
Yeah.
The anti-god.
The anti-god, yeah. That's great.
Yeah, that's good. But it's got some problems, particularly the leads. So moving on, we have at place 5, 6, 7 between us is Assault on Precinct 13. I have this one the highest at 5. I really like it. Just lean, mean 1970s movie. I think it's probably like the best of Carpenter's Siege movies.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
Because it's so pure about it, I guess. It's just other movies, kind of Prince of Darkness or whatever, just kind of fall into that a little bit at the end. Almost seems like for lack of a better idea. But here it's, I mean, again, it's not, it sounds kind of simple and derivative to say, well, they shoot a little girl, and so it's the meanest movie ever. But man, does that work? It's the whole movie feels so grimy, basically because of that move.
Yeah, it's brutal, and yeah, it kind of, the whole movie's changed after that, and you're on edge pretty much constantly from that point on, and it's just kind of loaded with good scenes, and it moves so fast from one good scene to the next, and this is like great character work too, like on a shoestring budget with like not necessarily terrific actors in every role. He still manages to make note of half a dozen characters in this easily, and you're kind of following them and care what happens to them a little bit
while dragging nothing out.
Yeah,
which is something when you watch the remake that has like some more polished action to it, and
bigger names,
if you just
all that.
Yeah, I guess it's got better acting to a degree because it's got Lawrence Fishburne and Ethan Hawke,
but less effective acting, right? It's
right. Yeah. Well, and if you're big into watching, people's heads get exploded by gunshots, then it's really working hard to cater to you.
Yeah, it's better at that. Yeah,
but it's just not as effective. Like I said, nothing in the original is drug out, even though it is making note of all those different characters. And for all the action and extra head gore in the remake, it does feel like it's dragging its feet sometimes.
Now, this is kind of where I think I have this at 6 on my list, and I believe 6 and up is what I would consider excellent Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
We're there with this one.
Yeah, this is where the tier starts of classics for me.
Just like things that have changed my life for the better dramatically. Like probably the only reason this one would be at the bottom of that is because I saw it latest in life. I haven't had as long a relationship as I have with the next stuff we're going to talk about. So yeah,
I only saw Assault, I think, within the last 4 or 5 years. So that was the first time I watched it. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I bet that's why I put it at the higher end of this little spectrum, and you guys put it lower, is because it was one of my first forays into like 70s grindhouse stuff, and it made a real impression on me back in the day.
I mean, it's a great one. It's a great version of that. It's
also maybe number really 2 Carpenter score.
It's a great score.
See, I don't remember the score, so I can't. Yeah,
pretty simple, but it's awesome. Yeah,
yeah, simple and driving. Yeah. All right. Next up, we get to They Live, which we have at 5. John at 5, me at 6, Michael down at 8. This is just outside of the classics for me, for reasons I went into on that. Basically, just like kind of the alien design presentation doesn't fully work for me. It's it's a little goofy to me. I wanted the violence to be sillier and gorier.
I happened to be able to just watch this again for the 35th anniversary. It was released to theaters, so I saw it just last month, and I like the film for what it's about. I don't really like it as much for actually how it's done. Again, it feels like lesser tier Carpenter, not in terms of ideas at play. Not to me. The ideas at play are really great. And one of the things that kind of shocked me was how both prescient and still incredibly applicable the film is. So that done on that level, it's still really great. I'm kind of the outlier that I'm not a real big fan of Piper in it. I
think Piper's great.
He's both fun to watch, but he's just not that great of an actor, and I just don't think he's that great in it. I don't think Russell would have been a good pick for it either, but I just don't. There's something about Piper that to me is like I always feel like he's reading the lines. Like I never get the feel like, yeah.
I feel like he's naturalistic. I feel like he's just sort of, just not too bright a guy, as a character. And that maybe
there aren't that many lines.
Yeah,
for to read. I really like Piper in that role as he went into there, but I am, when I revisit that movie, a little disappointed that there's not as much Keith David in it as I remember.
Yeah.
There's a guy who makes his moments count, man. He feels like he's in the whole film, but he's not at all.
Yeah. But I feel like myself wanting it to be just a full two-hander with them, but it's not. It's definitely Piper's movie.
I mean, I don't hate the film by any stretch. It's just it's not. No. It's as you see from my list, I put 7 films above that. So yeah.
And of course, just the fight scene is just such a great conceptual joke.
Yeah, that's right.
It is. Mm-hmm.
It's almost something that like I don't need to actually watch. Like I think about it and how long it goes on, and that makes me chuckle. And then like
we were howling when we watched
4.5 minutes left of it.
Yeah, it was. I was with three other folks watching it, and we were howling at the theater when we watched it this last month with that scene because it was just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just too many notable, great, memorable moments in They Live for me to call it anything less than terrific. I'm just so taken by it. It's so balls to the wall with its messaging. It's just like Reagan's a fucking alien. He's gonna kill us all. I mean, it's great.
I love that part of it. Yeah,
it's an angry cartoon movie, and that you just don't get too many of those. I guess it's in a lineage with Verhoeven, as we were talking about on the episode, and that if it doesn't reach the heights of RoboCop, well, it's a pretty high height to reach. I think it gets a lot closer than almost anyone else has, because that's a hard mark for anyone to hit. And
yeah, that's not a very crowded subgenre.
No,
it's
not of good movies.
No, obviously I prefer RoboCop, but it's not a disgrace to RoboCop by any means to be compared. But yeah, okay. Now we're circling back to the biggest single difference in any of our rankings here, which is Escape from New York, which Michael's got at 3, I have at 4, and John has way down at 11 because he's just wrong sometimes, and we have to
traumatic brain injury. I'm not sure what's going on there. But.
Again, that's weird. I did not get that from our episode on Escape from New York that you thought.
I don't dislike it. I think it's good.
Starman was better.
I think it's a good movie, and I do like Starman a lot. I think Escape from New York is fine. It's
but you think Vampires is better than Escape from New York? That's just wild to me.
Yeah, that is all sorts of wrong. I mean,
I've had more fun with Vampires. It's got more.
You had more fun with James Woods, coke-addled James Woods than
Isaac Hayes as the Duke of New York,
and Russell in a absolutely iconic and like career-changing role as Snake Plissken. Wow,
Snake Plissken to me is not the great Kurt Russell role. We're about to get to that.
Well, it's not, but but it is the role that literally changed his career. Mm-hmm. Because
we're about to get to that in the Captain Ron podcast we have coming up in November.
That's right. Yeah,
because up to then he was known as the child actor or the teenage actor from Disney, and it was Escape from New York is what changed it. I mean, Elvis. Did Elvis come first?
Yes. That's where
that
where
was an attempt,
Carpenter
but that
met
wasn't
and fell in love.
Yeah, but I mean, it was really Escape from New York that everybody kind of sat up and looked at Kurt Russell in a different way.
Yeah, he's awesome in it. He I think if you take Russell out of that film, I think it might actually be a bad movie. I feel like the promise of that film and the delivery are, they're just a little bit discordant.
It's I think it's where the limitations of Carpenter's action chops probably come to the fore the most.
I mean, I think it's structurally a real mess. I think like, as to plotting, I think it, kind of stuff just happens. Like characters are just constantly moving one place to the next, picking up or dropping off additional characters along the way. And they're all fun characters, but none of them are like great. None of them are incredible.
Oh,
characters.
I like Cabby and I like Brain.
And
I like Cabby and I like the Duke.
The Duke?
The president is all right, but it's not like, I don't really care about any of them. I'm kind of fine with them all dying, and it's just kind of, it gets about 75% of the way to its premise, and I think that it's held back in various ways. I think there's a great version of that film, and I kind of think that we've gotten closer to that version in other stuff. Maybe what's that? Neil Marshall's version of this movie, Doomsday. It's about the same for me. The space one with Guy Pearce is all about the same for me.
Alice touched on a couple of times. I would agree. I don't think Carpenter's a particularly great action director, I don't know a lot of people who would say he was. I think, frankly, probably his best action film we haven't talked about yet, and I'm sure it's coming up on the list. But yeah, I mean, again, Escape from New York, a lot of stuff you're talking about to me is also indicative of The Fog, where although I don't
similar tier for me,
but I think Escape from New York story is much tighter and better than you're giving it credit for. And I think Escape from New York is limited by two things mostly. I think we talked about the lack of him being a super great action director, and I think budget. I think if he had a bigger budget, I think it would be a stone cold classic, like without any kind of even with the action not being up to even early 80s standards. I think that, but and again,
I think you might be wrong about that though, just because the rest of his career plays out that yes, Carpenter is somebody who's always hamstrung by lack of budget, but when he actually does get a budget, it doesn't seem to produce better results.
They're like his worst films are the ones with budgets. Oddly enough,
and I would agree with you that it seems to be ripe for a remake. But again, I think like The Fog, which I know you don't love as much as me, I still think it's like it's going to be really tricky to make something as good or better, because
I don't want them to remake it.
Okay.
To be clear,
well, it doesn't. It's a movie that doesn't have to be remade because it minted a subgenre of its own.
Yeah.
Like you said, that there's a Neil Marshall version and the Guy Pearce version that don't have to actually be called Escape from Blank.
Right.
They're riffing on this.
Right.
This plot structure, this conceit that he came up with.
Even Escape from New York though is doing a genre thing. It's doing almost satire of, that era of MST3K fodder, of just like cheap ass sci-fi action films that are terrible. And they said, well, what if we did one, but it was like good and we took it seriously, and that's like the whole premise, really. And it works on that level, but I just don't think it quite gets to, anywhere near his top tier of stuff, as it's just not as effective a film in any of the things it tries to do.
I think actually what you were talking about earlier about how it's sort of structurally not that sound. I think there's a way that actually works with the Snake Plissken character, and I kind of doubt this is by design, but the screenplay is not super tight, and it's partly because Snake Plissken as a character kind of refuses to engage with any subplots as they pop up.
It's funny,
and I kind of like that. I mean, it fits. I doubt it was really like thought out in that manner, but it kind of fits somehow to me. And it's got that great psychotic looking goon with
Romero.
That Romero, that moves it from 5 to 4 on my list. That guy.
Here's the movie I want this to be when I watch it: The Warriors. I want this to be The Warriors, and that's full of Romeros. It's it's just nothing but Romeros in that, and it also has
all Romeros.
It's also got a really distinct kind of like understanding of the geography and identity of different parts of New York, which Escape from New York does.
Okay, I think we've hit on where the real source of this lies.
I kind of want
Escape from New York is a satire of New York written by somebody who's not lived in New York and is filmed in East St. Louis.
I figured John would kind of harp on that. I was waiting for that to come out. So
but you know what? That's okay. Fair cop. I can accept that. I mean, look, 11's still a bit low. I think it should be higher in that middle tier at the very least. But
I like Starman.
Now let's let's put the shoes on the other feet though next, because the next thing we have to talk about is In the Mouth of Madness, which John has this one highest at 4, and Michael and I have lower, 8 for me and 11 for Michael. So this really didn't work for you.
No,
you got it behind Escape from LA. That's rough.
Okay. All right. Well, I love it. I think it's great. Michael, you don't love In the Mouth of Madness?
No, I think probably.
Have you read Sutter Kane, Michael?
I'm his biggest fan, and let me tell you, I think
he prefers his short stories to his full length novels.
I like his pseudonym novels a lot better than his main.
Oh, okay.
But no, I don't think. I think one of the biggest problems is Carpenter. I don't think having this kind of wealthy, to-do, successful protagonist fits Carpenter, and I think it's a problem for the film.
What?
Yeah.
That he's a wealthy to-do. What? No, he's an asshole. That's okay.
I didn't say he was a good person. I didn't say he was a good person. But I'm saying the Carpenter tends to not exclusively, but tends to focus on working class.
Yeah, blue collar heroes.
Yeah, blue collar
everywhere except for here, and I guess Ghosts of Mars to an extent.
Yeah, and
whatever.
I mean, the things
you class ideas at all.
The things you talked about with Escape from New York are kind of what I felt with In the Mouth of Madness. I just don't give a shit about Sutter Kane in any form or way. Like I've never invested in the story of the journey. And it wasn't scary. It wasn't horrific enough for me. Some neat sequences, but it didn't get there. Like it didn't a lot. I mean, it didn't even feel like a Carpenter film a lot to me, frankly.
It feels very Carpenter.
I literally just watched this, like I said, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and so it's pretty fresh. But
the mutant lady with the axe yelling "fuck you" and jumping on top of the car. What could be more Carpenter than
that? All-time cinematic moment. I love it. No, it's I kind of agree with you a bit, Michael. That something about the conceit here just doesn't work for me. There's some great imagery in here, and some performance, like Samuel's performance is good, but the metatextual stuff in it, the sort of bending of reality to where he's watching himself on screen. It's not completely removed from the bullshittiness I get from the Ward's multiple personality stuff. I need for things to be scary. I need the internal reality to remain solid of the movie, and the threats to the characters to be real within their world.
The breakdown of objective reality is one of my favorite things about the movie. I love all that. That's fun. And part of this is I was introduced to this movie when I was like 14. It was a lot of new kind of ideas, or not new ideas, but like new to me ideas in it. Right. Like I'd never seen a lot of this stuff done. An introduction to cosmic horror in a lot of ways. Like a lot of big ideas kind of like come to bear on me, and that is why I found this one scary, and maybe still do sort of. It is unsettling to me because it kind of got me when I was at the right age for it.
Whereas I came to it late, and I always knew it was part of the unofficial Apocalypse trilogy.
Right.
We haven't talked about the other film yet. We'll leave that. But like to me, like even I think Prince of Darkness is so much better than In the Mouth of Madness. Like to me, it's not even a discussion. I just think it's so much better, especially with cosmic horror. To me, this is just more like psychological horror. I get the references to Lovecraftian stuff in Mouth of Madness, but it doesn't feel particularly cosmic to me. It feels more psychological and internal than anything else.
Well, madness is a big part of cosmic horror.
I agree. There's a little bit of artificial separation on my part of that. I agree with that. But yeah, so...
Well, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I have Prince of Darkness and Mouth of Madness at number 7 and number 8, but there's a pretty big gap for me between the two. I do find Prince of Darkness a lot more effective.
Yeah. I got a good gap.
Prince of Darkness is kind of a tier unto itself because it's outside of the classics and it's sort of well above the one right after it, but just sort of sitting there in its push broom mustache. Look, all right, we're up to the final 3 here.
They're the real classics, yes.
And these we have a lot of consensus on.
Yeah.
We'll start with actually with Halloween. You can make a strong case best horror movie ever made by some people's estimation. Probably the most influential that I can think of. And yet none of us have it at number 1 on our lists here. John has it all the way down at number 3. Michael and I have it at number 2. And that, what do you guys think? Is it just has all the derivations of it and has been too ripped off to maintain its full potency?
I think so. I mean, I think after 40 plus years, I think it's still an amazing achievement, and I think it's still a really fun film to watch. But it's just you can't watch it and enjoy it. At least I don't think you can, or I can't at least, the same way as you could 20, 35 years ago.
I don't know. I feel like the first time you see it if you were to watch this for the first time now, I think it would be disappointing just because, we've expanded on the ideas in it so much and you've seen these things so much. But I don't know. I feel like if you watch it enough times, once you've seen it 10 to 12 to 15 times, it kind of resets itself and you can see again what it was that was so great. That I think I've watched this film, I don't know, probably in the last 5 years. I bet I've seen this movie 6 or 7 times.
Oh, wow.
It's just such an easy thing to throw on. I'm going to an all-night horror movie marathon next weekend, and they're playing it at that, so I might see it again.
Oh, that would be fun. I'd love to.
If I don't sleep through it, which might happen, because I've seen it so often. But it's the ultimate painless kind of watch for me. Yeah. It's a very agreeable film to just sit down with, and I think familiarity has created that because I do believe that how many people actually get killed in this film? Like maybe 3, I think.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah. I think you get 3 deaths in the first 15 minutes of the 2018 one. They've just had to raise the bar so consistently, over the last 40 years that it's sort of inevitable that the progenitor will feel a little bit quiet in comparison, but.
Well, yeah, but I think that's what you were talking about. How would this play today if you're watching it if it's your first time seeing this, but you've seen a bunch of the derivatives? I think if you make it through, if you manage to hold, actually lock up your smartphone and because there's going to be a stretch maybe after the opening, and then there's going to be almost an hour where it is going to feel really slow and not that inspired. Mm-hmm. And then I think the last 20 to 30 minutes, though, we're still going to rip.
No question, man. Oh,
and I think that's what
the best. Yeah,
that's what knocks it down a little bit for me is that just how much of the memorable stuff in this movie is packed into the last 20 minutes.
You're right. I have a really great memory. The first time I saw this film, I'm older than y'all, so I saw it on TV. On network TV for the first time in I think 1981. I think it was its broadcast premiere. It was right around Halloween. It was in October of 81. Mm-hmm. I was at a buddy's house. It was at night, watched it, and then I had to ride my bike a mile home in the dark. And I can tell you that was the scariest fucking bike ride in my entire life.
That's great. That is again, we're talking about the ideal format, where do these movies really live? Yeah. And at a buddy's house where you have to, and then you have to go home in the dark. Yep. That is the perfect
slumber
venue
party
for Halloween.
Slumber party in the 80s. Man, what a perfect night. Yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, just to be pulled back to that kind of, experience of childhood, really, in a way. It's a great kind of I would think I got a little kid who's going to have to watch a bunch of horror movies because she's my kid. I feel like I'm going to introduce this movie to her sooner than I should because I consider this sort of a formatively important horror film, that sort of defines the genre in a lot of ways and probably easier to handle than other things would be, because it's not gory particularly, it's just scary. It's just scary. And it'll teach her the right lesson about strangers. So, I don't know, when she's 6.
Yeah, but it's also, it's Carpenter does endings better than anybody else in the business because it's got ever. The final, minute of this movie takes it into this almost cosmic horror direction of wait a minute, what if we are really just dealing with incarnated evil, corporeal, but still unstoppable evil. And what a great, as opposed to say the jump scare of the main character coming out of a medicine cabinet in Last Shot of the Ward, just what a study in contrasts of the way that a horror twist ending, still out there thing can mean such different things depending on the presentation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look,
it can mean nothing in the ward case.
The Halloween. It's. I mean, what can you even say about this film? It is rightly regarded as one of the greatest pieces of horror cinema ever. Certainly the most influential, and it's essential viewing for everyone. Yeah. Everyone, you know. You don't like horror movie stuff? Shit, you got to watch Halloween anyway.
I mean, like, yeah, and I think especially as Al pointed out, I mean, especially the last 15, 20, 25 minutes. I mean, it's almost pure iconic. I can't say the word right. Iconography. Just because, I mean, just when Michael sits up, the last shot. I mean, everything about it is just it's now part of our cinematic language because of that.
All the shots from inside the closet. The end there.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's never been shot better. Yeah. The inside of a closet's never been more frightening than in that film. And it's wonderful. Masterpiece for a reason. So I don't know. Maybe we can change that.
So
maybe that's number one.
We've got two movies left, and one of them, it doesn't get the word masterpiece thrown at it quite as much, and yet John cheekily put it as his number one. I have it. I think Michael and I have it as our reasonable numbers 3 and 4. But that's Big Trouble in Little China, which is just an incredibly lovable movie. A lot of our episode on that is me marveling over, like, how is this movie not like full of 80s racism? And
that was a great episode. But that was a great episode, by the way, guys. A great episode.
Thank you.
I had a lot of fun on that one.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch this movie. Great character.
I think a masterpiece of almost incalculable measure. I think. I don't like. They're just not movies this good, or this original, or that feel this way, or that are this constantly surprising and funny and exciting and thrilling. I remember that some of this stuff was scary as a kid, even, like it just keeps taking you by surprise. I love the first half hour of this movie because it just keeps ramping up, you get like a sense right away that, there's magic, because that reshot opening, which I think is great because it immediately kind of opens up the world on you. And then it just keeps ramping up into like, well, oh shit, we got a Chinatown gang called the Lords of Death chasing us. Oh shit, now we're in a gang war in an alley between two rival gangs. Oh, now there's immortal like Raiden guys popping out from the sky and shooting lightning, and then the ancient sorcerer appears at the end of shooting light out of his mouth, and then they find the subterranean tomb that it's just on and on and on. Unbelievable pacing. Unbelievable.
All that's missing is he busting open a trash can to find like a turkey leg to refill his health bar.
and what a legendary lead performance. An unbelievable, unbeatable, all-timer great lead performance that is unequaled in cinema.
And this is like maybe we talk about the obvious ways that Halloween is incredibly influential on how cinema would go from here. Big Trouble, I feel like, is low key, maybe one of the more influential movies around. Billy, because this invented like the characterization of Star-Lord, which then is become a big part of like the characterization of action heroes in the 2010s and 20s now. And I think kind of almost the original incarnation of that. Maybe there's something in the 60s that it traces back to, but it's a complete picture here that just sort of this movie happened. It lay dormant for 20 or 25 years, and then every like big budget action movies started just doing this again.
I mean, it's incredibly prescient as a mashup as well. I mean, I feel like you can draw a straight line from Big Trouble in Little China to The Matrix, even though they're wildly different in tone.
I get that. No, it's
just sort of kitchen sink of influences.
The influences coming over. These are like Chinese influences, kind of like some of these appearing for the first time. I think in Hollywood cinema. In this movie, the Shaw Brothers stuff.
I mean, I adore this movie. I don't rank it as objectively best, but I mean, that's what I was trying to do. I mean, it probably ought to be number 2 or 3 on my list, actually, rather than 4.
there are rules this thing is breaking.
Oh yeah.
Somehow it gets away with.
Yeah.
Like there's things this movie does technically wrong that somehow are not issues in this for whatever reason, for just because of the panache and the charm of the cast. And I'm not even just talking about Russell here. I'm talking about like the fifth lead, Eddie. Eddie pulls off moments, because I don't know why. That guy.
Yeah, but why is Eddie here at all? The screenplay does not need him.
No,
that's what he's just part of the world.
And I feel like it's up there with Star Wars as being one of the most quotable movies ever fucking made in the world.
Everything that comes out of his mouth.
Everything. Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love that. To me, to me, the movie plays like it's a D&D group that got bored with a medieval setting. And they said, okay, guys, you're now 20th century truck drivers. And here's what's going to fucking happen. And they're like, what? Why are we truck drivers? And then a half hour into the game.
How is my wizard supposed to be a truck driver?
A half hour into the game.
You drive a tour bus. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
A half hour in the game, then they run into, wushu spouting wizards. And now everything's fucking on at that point. And it's great. It's great.
And eventually Beholderkin.
Yes, that's right.
I've now, a word I've now said twice on this podcast. Didn't see that coming. It's a wonderful movie and amazing how oddly, for as goofy as it's trying to be and as outlandish as it wants, again, the whole joke of it is how crazy this mythology is and how Jack Burton can't keep up with it. And yet it's not xenophobic at all about that. And
amazing.
I think that like how the Chinese culture is presented there, and God, how insufferable the modern version of this would be, how pleased with itself it would be about presenting a Chinese American action hero in Wang or whatever. And Carpenter just thinks like, yeah, this stuff's cool. That's why I'll do it. And but he's so unimpressed by his boundary breaking or pushing, forward of anything that it plays that much better to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's wonderful. Like it's the tone every Marvel movie is chasing in some sense. And,
John, you were talking about introducing your daughter to Halloween.
Yeah.
I always speak very highly of my daughters. They're wonderful people. I love them. I'm proud of them. They're much better people than I am. But I consider it my biggest failure as a father that neither one of them caught into Big Trouble in Little China. I feel like I've somehow not done my job right, that they don't appreciate it.
I'm gonna have to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Cautionary tale for you, John.
Yeah, I think you got to like introduce a toy Pork Chop Express into her crib pretty early, so that she recognizes it on the screen.
Yeah, she's not going to be able to get. She will know the plot before she sees the movie. I'll be telling her tales of Jack Burton, and yeah, I mean, I'm not even kidding here. I'm gonna make her like this film.
Right.
Oh, poor my daughter.
So now we've got the last one to come here.
Oh,
and Lights Out Classic. It's ridiculous that John did not put this at number one. At least Michael and I
had it
acknowledge reality.
For that alone, you should be doing Snyder's Canon after this. That's how strongly I feel about it.
No, it's the thing, man. Yeah. It is and I don't know if it's definitely a top 10 movie for me of all time. Might be top 5. I think about it. It's my favorite horror movie ever, I believe.
Strong argument for that. Yeah. That no one's ever made a better horror movie than The Thing. Yeah. It's
never made a better, like I said, it's the best monster movie ever. And it's got this other layer of the paranoia on it. That's never, I can't think of a better paranoid thriller than this either. But it's also the best, goopiest monster movie ever with the best monster.
Yeah.
I mean, I to me, the only other movie I can think of off the top of my head that's in this serious discussion for being best horror / monster movie of all time is the 79 Alien.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my favorite horror movie is The Shining, but it's sort of a different deal.
I'll hear arguments. I will hear arguments that The Shining is a better horror movie or a scarier horror movie, and I'll hear arguments that the Xenomorph is a better monster than The Thing. However, The Thing combines those two in a way that I think elevates it for me at all. And it's, again, it does the paranoid thriller stuff, but not in a way that sort of the cop-out bullshit where like, the man's greatest enemy is truly man. Like, no, man's greatest enemy is the thing. Like, the monster really is that bad and scary. It's just that it presents in such a way that you also can't trust your fellow man, and that gives it extra weapons to use against you. But it's not, like I said, it's not selling out the threat of that monster with any allegorical bullshit.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And the cast is exceptional in a sort of a low-key way. They're all really just like, they're playing the reality of the thing really well. Wilford Brimley being an enormous standout in that regard.
He wants to be us!
It's all-timer.
Keith
David.
I think, we're gonna be doing Mass Effect episodes soon on this. Yes. Like, Keith David low-key becoming the patron saint of our podcast. Like, God, is there anything that is not elevated by having that guy?
Yeah. Also, I got to throw in an incoming hot take. The Shining's not scary.
Oh, we did a whole episode on this.
Yeah,
this is not the time
I can't get
for this.
I've seen that movie way too many times to know if it's still scary.
I've only seen it twice, guys. So I'm throwing that Molotov cocktail, then I'm going to run away. It's not scary, but that's fine. It's fine.
I've told this story before on this podcast of coming across that in its platonic ideal of a form, which was the first time I snuck out of my bedroom, like 8 years old, and turned on the TV and just turned on The Shining halfway through, and just having my poor little mind blown out of my skull. Like, is this what TV becomes at 9 o'clock?
I have all sorts of hot takes about that movie, but that's another time. Whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like, all right. Final thoughts on the thing.
10 years, yeah.
Like,
the thing is just, I think it's kind of like what John said about Halloween. It's like, what's left to say at this point? Because it's just so damn good. Everything about it. And yeah, I mean, I have passed that on to my daughters. Well, one of my daughters, and she got to see a repertory screening of it. I never got to see it in the big screen, unfortunately, which I regret. But it's something I watch, if not every year, close to every year. It kind of like John's done for Halloween. It's like, it is a perennial rewatch for me. And it's like every time I'm like, God, this movie's so fucking good. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just
and it really doesn't lose power through repetition.
No, not at all. Not at all.
To drag the word back into this, that's one that once you get to the twist, there's just no way to engage with the scary sequences ever again. The thing is it's brilliantly unsolvable. That you could be watching it for the 9th time and still not be sure who is the thing when. I mean, there's a couple of times when okay, by now Windows is a thing, but you still don't know who gets infected when. Yeah. And that just it has this, it never goes stale because of that. Well, and because of the creature design and 100 other things.
Mm-hmm. Prime rewatchable stuff. I mean, Carpenter makes rewatchable films here.
He does.
I mean, all but like the bottom chunk of this, I think, are movies that are easy to just come back to over and over again. They're 90 minutes. They move fast. It's he's quite good at making films that want to live in your bones and in your head long after you watch it.
I'm pretty sure that Starman is the only of his movies that hits 2 hours.
Oh yeah, I think does it even hit 2 hours?
I think it's like 2 hours and 2 minutes, maybe, but I'll look quickly.
I mean, the majority are under 90 minutes. I'm pretty sure, or hovering right there.
Yeah, they're between 90 and 100 minutes, depending with credits. So
yeah, and some are like 80 minutes. There's a few of them. They're just in and out.
No, it's 115 minutes. You're right. It's just under.
Yeah,
I thought one of these hit 2 hours, but
I think Memoirs gets up there. It's not 2 hours.
No, hour 40. I just looked at that. It just feels like it takes forever because things happening for so long.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even The Ward is like 83 minutes or something, isn't it?
It feels a lot fucking longer than that.
Thank God. Yeah. But yeah, they're all short, and I love that school of thought. Like, Carpenter's never a guy who's like, well, no, this movie has to be 2.5. As is the modern trend. But, there's nothing modern about Carpenter, obviously. So I guess it makes sense that he's quick in and out, knows how to get these things shot. I guess Dark Star feels long because it got inflated so much from what was clearly a 45-minute film.
Really. But, and again, it's Blint having short run times, and also that he always, with the exception of the odd, Ghosts of Mars, that's an outlier because it doesn't have a strong ending. But the fact that, he always goes out on a pretty big punch, and pieces out quickly once the punch is thrown.
Great endings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even the Ward has. No, the Ward has a bad ending.
It's bad.
I'm
Everything
sorry.
about it is.
I mean, I guess
It's
you want the screenplay sort of structured so that it's all
ending, man. It's bad. It's bad.
But the screenplay wants it to all hinge on the ending, to all be about that ending. Like it's supposed to be that, and it's just.
Well, I mean, here's a slightly hot take, and this is kind of pivoting off of what John said about. And I was thinking about this as we were talking before about Carpenter's brevity and his. He really seems to have 90 to 100 minutes of story in him. I do think to some degree, the weaknesses that John talks about with Escape from New York and The Fog, I think that's there because those are really thin stories. And I think that they might benefit. They don't need to be 2.5 hour, big epics, but I think they might have benefited from slightly meatier. So I'm not wise enough to know.
Prince of Darkness is one that actually could be a long.
And I agree with that. Prince of Darkness probably could be even like a 4 or 6 episode limited series. Yeah. But,
right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We talked about that.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah. But, I mean, I still love Escape from New York. I still love Prince of Darkness. I still love The Fog. But I think, especially The Fog and Escape from New York, I think when you watch them, you can feel that thinness. And you either vibe with them or you don't. And John vibes with them less than I do. But I mean, I recognize that I think that it feels like maybe a couple of more passes at the script writing stage might have helped give it a little bulk. But I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe, but it is also sort of that butterfly's wing thing, you know. You don't want to touch it and break the thing with too much structure. That's that. Especially on a vibes movie, and these are the ones that I wasn't even too hot on. Right. I think it probably might have helped, and if you do it right, maybe. But it's just as likely to kind of just break the thing. So
I mean, going back to the movie, The Thing, that is something like you could not stretch that movie out 1 minute longer.
Oh, so perfect.
Without somehow nerfing the monster in some way to drag the situation out, because the monster is so overwhelming and so horrifying, and the people are so outmatched that they kind of do everything they possibly can. But if there was one more scene, you'd have to start watering it down somehow to get more out of this.
Yeah. How different do you think his career would be if these great films that he make hit? If obviously Halloween did, but The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China, I guess those are the two that were just like, yeah, these ones are lights out great. They were both bombs.
Yep.
Both. I mean, the Thing is like a famous, huge money loser. If that changes, if that movie is the big hit, makes $100 million, R-rated film, summer release, 1983. 82.
Yeah. Came out right at the same time as E.T., which didn't do well for it. Yeah.
What happens then to John Carpenter? Does it help
it's
him?
A different
I don't
story.
know.
Depending on which one it is, it's a very different answer.
Right. Well, clearly. It's two very different movies, and, with neither of them working, and, you don't have a way forward necessarily other than, cheap horror films.
If Big Trouble in Little China had been like a modest hit, though, I think we might have gotten a second Jack Burton movie instead of a second Snake Plissken movie, and all the world might have been better off for that.
Maybe. Or you mess with a thing and it breaks again. I don't know.
I think there's more juice in the Jack Burton character than there is.
I agree.
You're right.
I agree.
You're right.
And I think without the failure of The Thing, you don't get Christine, you don't get Starman. So that's the thing.
No, probably not.
The thing is, I think we probably.
I mean, I'd trade them for more stuff like The Thing,
right? But I think I think if you look at post Big Trouble, I mean, I think we probably still would have gotten They Live almost regardless, because I think that feels like a really personal project for him. Like he was.
Well, that was an angry part of a deal.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just the story itself. That was an angry screed that I think was going to come from him regardless. And I think that if he had, if he had more juice, it would have been easier for him to make. So I think that I look at.
But if he had more juice, if he had more success, would he have been as angry and like enough to carry it through?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know.
And I mean, that and Prince of Darkness were part of a unique
that's
deal
true.
Basically, he got like 100% approval on anything he wanted to put up if he met a certain budget.
Yeah.
And so that's like a sweetheart deal for John Carpenter, especially, who works well with the low budget. So, you get Prince of Darkness and They Live out of it, which are two great ones, or at least really good ones.
Those are the ones I could live without Starman and Christine, but I don't. I want to keep They Live and Prince of Darkness.
I think it's almost more interesting to think of what if Prince of Darkness and They Live had been much bigger hits. Not huge, but if they had been much more profitable, what would have things looked like after that? I'm really curious about that because I think.
Well, he gets wiped out, man.
Yeah, he does.
He just sort of like, Memoirs of the Invisible Man. I mean, you got Prince of Darkness, In the Mouth of Madness after that, which, I go to bat for, obviously, but it's pretty much over after that. Like, it's just like a total washout, He loses his touch. It's the Tarantino thing. It's you get old, you stop being good. I mean, you can debate how real that is, but in John Carpenter's case, it's kind of undeniable that he lost something.
Yeah. The only thing, I mean, after that, you'll have some people defend vampires, but not without qualifications, and
it's nowhere near the top tier, nowhere near the great stuff.
Yeah, nobody's going to claim that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's top tier Daniel Baldwin.
Sure,
but, we hashed that out in that episode. So anyway, look, we spent a long time on John Carpenter, months and months, hours now, and our conclusion, The Thing. Quite good.
All the movies that you knew and loved were great are still pretty great, and the other ones you haven't seen are as bad as you might have heard. In fact, so you don't need to.
I guess the only revelation from this whole series is Big Trouble in Little China is even better than we thought.
That's
the only surprise to be found.
We didn't really cover some of his little ancillary projects. We talked a bit in this episode about the Masters of Horror. The Cigarette Burns is fun. It's worth seeing. He's made a bunch of other things. He made the Body Bags anthology horror film. He made a stalker movie in the 70s called Someone's Watching Me for television. And of course, released this month, first project since the Ward in 2010, John Carpenter's Suburban Scream, straight to Peacock and streaming. Did you get a chance to watch any of this, Al?
I had a 5-day COVID quarantine right when this premiered, and I still couldn't bring myself to do it. The Ward had just taken too much wind out of my sails. I was gasping for breath as it was.
I feel like I had to mention it. I mean, it's
okay. Just for the sake of ending on a positive note, I will say go out there, buy his Lost theme albums because they're fantastic. Late period stuff from him. The music he's been cranking out with his son since he retired from filmmaking is just as good as what he was doing at his prime. Just some great synth-driven, heavy bass stuff.
All the David Gordon Green movies are scored by him. All the Halloween ones, and that's like some of the best stuff in those movies.
Oh yeah, the 2018 score. The 2018 is just that score is just so good. It's so good. I know he
didn't lose anything on those, man. No. He's still throwing heaters on scores.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our John Carpenter series. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Having me.
And thank you for choosing Michael Mann for us to do next. I've been championing the bit to do that one for like 2 years now. Our guest just hadn't cooperated yet, so I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that's coming up. Thief will be the first one. We got some Mass Effect episodes coming as well. We're revisiting the first Mass Effect game and really going in deep. It's a conversation we've wanted to have for a while and finally did it. So you can look forward to those coming soon, as well as wrapping up the Shield. Almost done with the Shield. Into the harrowing all-timer conclusion of the Shield. So that's what we got going on for the rest of the year. All right. I guess that closes the book on John Carpenter for us, unless he makes another film. We will revisit.